Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Retirement Compass, the show that helps you successfully navigate to and through your retirement. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio is the co-founder of Stonebridge Wealth Systems, Tim Kulhanek, and partner Jeremy Gove. We've got a really important show for you today. The title of this episode is When Two Become One. Now, most folks associate that phrase when a couple gets married, and rightly so. But there's another moment in time when two become one, typically later in life, but not always the case, when one spouse passes away. And with that can come something known as the widow's tax trap, which can equally affect both husbands and wives. So we're going to have this important conversation today, helping you be prepared, because the emotional devastation of losing a spouse is enough. You don't want to be dealing with unnecessary taxes, income loss, and financial stress on top of it all. So Tim, Jeremy, I'm really glad that you wanted to have this important conversation. Great to be with you this week as always. And I know this is something you have helped countless couples walk through, right? It is devastating to lose a spouse. The grief alone is bad enough. What you want to help mitigate and proactively prepare folks for is that they don't, then suffer any undue financial stress on top of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I usually I know you referenced a friend when we were talking about this before the show. I reference a friend as well, Pastor Doug Shada, used to always say, listen, folks, none of us are getting out of here alive. Mm-hmm. And that's the reality of it. So we need to be prepared for these different phases of life, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's first start off by defining what we mean when we are referencing what's known as the widow's tax trap. What are we actually talking about?
So let's start with defining what a trap is. So I pulled this up from Webster's, and the definition of trap is a device for taking game or other animals, especially one that holds by springing shut suddenly. So think of a mousetrap. Does that really apply? Probably not. Mm-hmm. So let's go to number 2.
Okay.
Something by which one is caught or stopped unawares. Also a position or situation from which it is difficult or impossible to escape. So I think that one really applies to what we're talking about.
Yes.
The widow's tax trap is, it's really, when we're talking about retirement planning, most of the time people are told when you are retired, your income will be lower or your taxes will be lower because your income will be lower when you retire, right?
That's a common thing people believe.
It's a common thing, yeah.
Right.
And so that's why we felt like it was important to do this show, because when people come in to sit down with us, and they've already have an advisor they're already working with, that's what they'll always tell us. Well, I don't need to worry about taxes because I've got a bunch of money in my IRAs and my 401k, I'm going to be good. And so in this situation, if a spouse passes away and you go from married filing joint, that's a great standard deduction right now. If you lose a spouse, you become a widow or a widower, now I'm filing single. And so usually the standard deduction is about half of what that is as a married filing joint. And typically, in most cases, the taxable income that you're receiving is still the same as it was when you were a married filing joint. But you just have less standard deductions, and so now your taxes are going to go up.
Right, so meaning you might have the same amount of income, but now it's going to be taxed at a higher rate than it was when you were married. And it's that double whammy, right? It's discouraging enough to lose a spouse, but then to be hit with a higher tax bill as a result, it's devastating.
It's very frustrating.
Yeah. Well, and then on top of that too, typically, we know that one of the Social Security checks will go away, right? So you get to keep the higher of the two, but now you've taken this hit in income, but yet the income you do have is going to be taxed at the higher rate. That is the tax trap, right?
Yeah, and a lot of times what we find is people don't even realize that they have a problem until they start drawing RMDs, right? And with the recent legislation, the OBBA and other legislation that's been passed, our RMD age is now 73 or 75.
Right, depending on the year you were born, right?
Yeah, if I'm a male, I'm probably going to live on the average in the United States to age 83. So there's not a lot of time between when I start drawing my RMDs and when I would pass away to start realizing that there's a problem. When I'm 83, that's almost too late to start doing anything about that.
Right.
You don't have time to take care of that problem.
Well, and this feeds right into the next question I was going to ask you, Tim, which is why it's so important to start planning for survivorship long before this day comes.
Yeah. Most people who come in don't even, this isn't on their radar because even if you have a plan right now, so our viewers out there, maybe you're thinking, well, I already got a financial advisor, thanks, but no thanks. I've already seen my Monte Carlo simulation. It says I've got a 95% chance of or probability of success. The shortcoming with most of these programs, and same with the Social Security claiming strategies, is they usually assume that both spouses die on the same day. Like, it's oversimplifying it, right? Well, you need to run those what-if scenarios. So what if, on average, what do they say, like 80% of men or something like that die married,
right,
but 80% of women die single?
Yep.
Well, it's because
we're living longer, right?
Yes,
on
exactly.
average.
Yep. So we need to prepare for that and realize that, there probably will be a time period where not only is she going to be paying higher taxes, but she's going to be on her own trying to figure it out and navigate. So you need to plan now and have that contingency in place. And I tell people, like, maybe the folks are out there listening and they're like the DIY approach. There's a few different ways that you can interact with the financial services industry. If you just like picture a triangle, right? At the base of the triangle, you've got kind of the product providers, the DIY, where you can go direct to Vanguard or Schwab or Fidelity or Betterment or SoFi or whoever. And they'll open up a brokerage account for you, and you can buy and sell stocks, bonds, mutual funds, trade till you're blue in the face, have a blast, whatever you want to do. They give you a window into the market. But if you call them up and you ask them for advice on taxes or estate or any of those types of things, they'll be like, whoa, we don't do that. It's kind of like the other day I went to Nebraska was playing against Michigan State, and Jeremy had actually given me tickets to a game earlier this season. Against, was it Houston Christian or something? It was like 99-0, right?
Right.
But it was some tickets that he got from a friend of his, and it was in like the club level at Memorial Stadium.
Yep.
And so, I took my daughter, my 5-year-old. It was her first game day experience, but it totally skewed what a game day experience was going to be because it's 300 levels, so you're actually inside, behind glass. So it was almost more like watching a game on TV, but in real life.
Right.
You can't really hear the crowd. You're not out in the elements. It was hot that day. It was air conditioned where we were. If you wanted something to eat, there was literally a staff member sitting on a folding chair at the end of our row. And you just, hey, I'd like another hot dog, pizza for her, and an ice cream cone. And she went and got it. And she didn't have to wait in line, right? With all these other people, wait for 20 minutes. She could just go right to the front of the line, go basically to the ice cream machine, fill up the cone, and bring it back to us. Contrast that with this past weekend when I went to the Michigan State game with some friends, or this past weekend, whenever it was, a few weeks ago. And like you miss half the quarter, you know? That's
waiting in line for food.
Waiting in line for food.
Right.
That's kind of what you get when you're in that product provider situations. When you call in, you're in the back of the line, you're in a queue, and they'll get to you when you can versus that white glove approach, which is why we go to the top of the triangle. We're in that holistic planning category where we're actually taking in consideration these more key type of tax strategies that need to be looked at much ahead of time because like Jeremy said, if you're 83, it's probably too late for us to really make a meaningful impact.
Right. I mean, hopefully it's never too late to be able to do something, but it's so much better to get proactive and be in front of this, right? And here's the interesting thing, because we've done shows in the past on the totality of estate planning, and we know that a lot of folks out there have not gotten their proper estate planning documents in place. We see that with celebrities. A lot of celebrities die without a will. What would you say, Jeremy, to someone who's watching right now and going, oh, well, we're prepared because we have a will? Is that really enough based on what we're talking about today with this widow's tax trap?
Well, it's a good start for sure. I mean, having something in place is better than nothing. The thing that we talk about a lot with clients when they're coming in is, okay, so if I have a will, I have that in place. Do I have my beneficiaries up to date? There's a lot more than just a will,
for sure.
Right?
Yep.
And when we talk a lot about taxes in our shows, and we talk a lot about taxes in general, and a lot of times people don't realize that when I pass away, again, I'm going to be going from married filing joint to a single filer. If I pass away, my wife is left doing that. So too often people wait until their their health declines before they start even thinking about some of this stuff. And typically that's in your late 70s, early 80s to put that together. I recently met with a client, a couple in Valentine, Nebraska. And they're both teachers. One was an administrator, one was a teacher, a music teacher. And she retired. And they went to a workshop put on by advisors that in Valentine. And they said absolutely for everyone in this room, you should wait to draw Social Security till you're 70. And that just doesn't make any sense to me. I would never make a blanket statement like that.
Right.
You need to have specific planning for you specifically. And as I was meeting with them, she almost didn't even want to meet in the first place because she thought it was kind of a waste of time. They were teachers, so they're just going to start drawing impers. They're going to just do that and get their teacher's pension. And as we were talking, it made sense for her to start drawing her Social Security right now. She was 65, and she actually should have started drawing technically a year ago, but we wanted to start right away. And then her husband is going to wait till he's 70.
So he can get the maximum amount, right?
Yes, and so her family lives into their 90s or late 90s typically. His family does it. They're in their mid to late 80s. So if they both waited till 70, that's why they thought they should do that. With their pensions and everything else, the way that they have those set up, it's just part of that whole all-encompassing plan to provide that income for her and for him, depending on who would pass away first.
Right, and planning for that survivorship benefit so that then the one spouse, of course, you get to keep the higher of the two benefits. You want to be able to maximize that, so that makes sense.
Right.
Well, I know we've got a lot more to get to on today's show, but for couples who are watching right now in particular, who want to get in front of this widow's tax trap, obviously so much goes into building a comprehensive plan that's going to address that. What would your encouragement be to them?
I'd go back to the example I was just given a minute ago. It's one thing when it's a football game and you want that kind of authentic experience of being out in the elements and hearing the noises of the crowd and when the balloons go when we score our first touchdown. That's great. And we were spoiled, my daughter and I, when we went, the tickets that Jeremy was gracious enough to hand our way. But what about your retirement? Do you want to miss a quarter of your retirement life waiting in line because you're on the phone with Vanguard because you've got a question, only to find out you get transferred 5 times, you have to be asked to be transferred back onshore because the people that you get are somewhere overseas and you can't understand them? Or would you like to have the white glove Rolls-Royce service where you have somebody who is your dedicated advisor who only deals with you, other clients obviously, but only deals with you. You don't get a different person every time you call. You know who you're going to get, they know you, they know your situation, and they get to go to the front of the line because we got the master key to make sure that we get exclusive service specifically for you so you can actually spend time watching the game. That game might be your grandkids. That might be, taking time to go to the football game, the volleyball game, to play. I'd rather have you focus on that and let us take care of the rest of the stuff. Let's get started with a call, the number bottom of your screen today.
Wonderful. Tim, Jeremy, thank you so much. That number to call to schedule your time to receive your complimentary written financial review is there for you on the bottom of your screen, 866-256-7778. Or if you'd rather connect online, simply scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. Stay with us. When we come back, we're going to dive into more deeply how you can protect yourself against income loss and higher taxes when one spouse passes, along with how you can protect yourself and get in front of all of these things. Stay with us to find out how right after this.
I wanted to take a quick minute to talk about something we don't often bring up in financial conversations, but we probably should: estate planning. Not just the legal paperwork, but the clarity your family might need if something unexpected happened. Here's the truth. Most families have some of their planning done, but not all of it. And often, the hard part isn't the money, it's the confusion, the decisions, and the pressure that falls on the people who are left behind. That's why we created something to help. It's called the Legacy Quiz. And in just a few minutes, it can give you a sense of where you are, where you stand, and what areas might need attention. It's quick, easy, and you can take it right now at stonebridgelegacy.net. Let's help make sure your plan isn't just in place, it's actually usable when it matters most.
Have you ever considered refinancing your retirement? When interest rates are low, you might be able to refinance your home, your car loan, or even credit card rates because it would help you keep more of your own money each month. Yet when interest rates go up, it may make sense to refinance your retirement. Higher interest rates could provide income opportunities that you may not be aware of. What works for your portfolio during low interest rates may not work for you when interest rates are high. Find out if a retirement refi could work better for you. Give us a call today and schedule a complimentary Refi Your Retirement review.
Welcome back to the Retirement Compass. I'm Kristen Oakley here with Tim and Jeremy from Stonebridge Wealth Systems, and we are so glad that you're joining us today. If you're just tuning in, we are having a very important conversation about getting in front of something that's known as the widow's tax trap. A lot of folks aren't prepared for when two become one, meaning when one spouse passes away, you could be hit with severe income loss and higher taxes. Guys, it just feels so unfair that this is how it's set up, but this is the reality. And I know that you're passionate about serving all folks, but especially widows. Widowers are often some of the most underserved folks in financial services. This is why we have these conversations to help protect people. So what are the most common income changes after a spouse passes away that you want our viewers to be aware of?
Yeah, the first one would be obviously one Social Security benefit's going to go away, and that's a very basic, learning item for today's show is the survivor keeps the higher of the two, but not both. That's why maximizing Social Security benefits is so critical.
Right.
That's also a reason why when I look at Social Security, I'm not just going to say, oh, well, just take it as soon as you can get it, because what are the resources? We might need to delay the higher of the two, at least till full retirement age, maybe even at age 70 to earn some of those delayed retirement credits to make sure that the survivor, whether that's husband or wife, isn't too reliant on their resources, because those resources are most likely on the at-risk side of the equation.
Yep.
And so they're going to be, basically what I'm saying is longevity risk is a multiplier. It multiplies all the other risks, whether it's healthcare, market, and equity risk, you name it.
Because the longer we live, the more we're subject to those things and the more money we're going to need, right?
Yep, exactly. Pensions. So this is one that a lot of people kind of overlook. They're like, oh, pensions are great. In fact, there's a study we referenced in a previous show that indicated that like 77% of those surveyed said that people who retire with pensions have, are likely or much more likely to have a satisfactory or sufficient or enjoyable retirement. So pensions are things that are like coveted by people. It's like, hey, I wish I still had a pension. Just get the gold watch and sail off into the sunset. And they went the way of the dinosaur. Well, how did you take your pension? Did you do life only so you could get the most amount out of it? And now you're married, or maybe you were married at the time and you did 15 years certain in life and you're in year 14. Well, after next year, once you've lived those 15 years, receive that pension, now it's basically like life only. So if something happens to you, you pass away, that entire pension goes away and your spouse will be left with zero. And so in situations like that, if we're going to do something that could substantially impact the amount of income that the spouse with the most longevity would potentially experience, we want to make sure that there's other resources in place. Maybe it's life insurance. There's other ways to replace that. We just have to be cognizant of it. And then we can get into things like RMDs, and mainly what I think about, Kristen, is the impact on Medicare.
Yes.
We said that your taxes go up,
right,
but it's not just the tax rate that goes up. It's like, oh, now because the thresholds are different, your IRMA, your surcharges for Medicare just went up. And those have been increasing at roughly 7.1% per year since 2019. So if it's $75 today, 10 years from now, the first threshold could put you at $150 per month more,
right,
from $1. You get to think about things like the net or net investment income tax. Now you're in that additional tax consideration, so you might have to pay 3.8% extra on all of your investment income. It's a cascading effect that can be really detrimental to your overall longevity of your resources.
Yep, no, for sure. So much impacts this, and that's why it's so important to get in front of it. How do you help couples create an income plan to really prepare for that day when one spouse does pass away?
Yeah, so we talk about an income plan. When you're talking about an income plan, a lot of times people will think, that's just where am I going to draw income from? The key thing is what happens if one of you passes away, then where are we going to draw income from, right? So that's the thing. We want to provide a joint life income plan because the likelihood of somebody passing away early it's real. I mean, most likely if you're a female, you're going to live longer than your husband. And so that's one of the things, but we want to also layer in some guaranteed income sources. Tim mentioned pensions. Unfortunately, when I first started in this industry, I met with a couple in Hastings, and I'll never forget it. The husband was an administrator with the school. He retired. At that time, this was back in 2006, his pension was around $9,000 a month, which was really good. Back then, especially. It's good today, but he set it up so he would be the only person that would get it because he wanted to maximize that. He said, I've been we've been teachers for our whole career. We've never really had money. I have the ability to make more money than I've ever made. So let's do that. Let's just draw it. And then he passed away a month later. So they didn't get anything out of the pension plan.
Wow.
It was absolutely crazy. So I'll never forget that. So that's one of those things that we need to analyze. What are the options?
Right.
And not just have this outlook, let's maximize it just for myself. We want to make sure that everybody's provided for, right?
For sure. How devastating.
So we want to, and then Social Security we've talked about that briefly so far, in the show today, but we want to maximize the benefits for our spouse too. So if you have a stay-at-home wife who maybe didn't have a lot of income, earned income, her Social Security is probably going to be a lot less. So it would make sense potentially to have that husband wait or delay depending on their other assets.
For sure.
So those are the things that we want to take into account. We just want to build a plan that benefits both of them and gets them to that end goal.
For sure. I know we've talked outside of the show, then you see this typically that usually one spouse handles the finances more than the other, right? That's very common.
Yeah.
I know in our house, I'm the one that does it, right? But I try to definitely include my husband and help him be aware of what's happening and what's going on. A lot of times you're meeting with maybe just one spouse. Talk about that, because this is part of the challenge, is making sure that both spouses are on the same page so that they're not blindsided when that day comes, right?
Yeah, we spend a lot of time, when we're doing reviews with people, we always want both people there. It's a husband and wife there.
Yep.
A lot of times the wife will say, he's got it, I'll let him take care of it. But we have a questionnaire that we put together talking about income planning, tax planning, all the different aspects of a financial plan. And we ask them to complete that. And we want them to complete it individually, because sometimes a wife might be worried more about something than her husband is, or vice versa. And so we want to know what are we concerned about, what's keeping us up at night. And so we go through that questionnaire, and then we start putting a plan together. And what we find is a lot of people, they rely on their husband, or they rely on their wife to take care of stuff.
Right.
And then that person's gone, and they don't even know where to begin. And so if you find yourself at home watching this show right now, and you know somebody that's been in that situation, or you're concerned about being in that situation, that's a great reason to give this number a call, set up a time to sit down with one of our advisors to talk to us about what the issues are, and put a plan in place for your situation.
Wonderful. Jeremy, Tim, thank you so much. That number to call is 866-256-7778. Or again, if you'd rather connect online, simply scan that QR code. That will connect you to a landing page. It'll ask you a few short, simple questions. Then a member of the team from Stonebridge Wealth Systems will reach out to connect with you to schedule your time to come in and receive your very own complimentary written financial review. We'll be back with more right after this.
Our team is very unique, so we all have different gifts. When you put it all together, it fits well.
Jeremy is definitely our most seasoned and fastest growing advisor we have. He's discerning, so he understands the way we want to do things at Stonebridge, to focus on the client and solving their problems, and that's really what he's passionate about.
I know Tim spends a lot of time making sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed for his clients. And he's not just satisfied knowing the 30,000-foot view, he wants to get down in the weeds and know exactly how it works.
The things that you buy, the stocks, the bonds, the mutual funds, that really isn't that important to the client. What's important to the client is, what does this mean for me? And at the end of the day, what it means is they can sit back and listen to the music. You know that you've got a team, not just one person, but an entire team behind you that's taking care of those things, so you can focus on what's important.
Welcome back to the Retirement Compass, where today we've been having a really important conversation about being proactive and being prepared for the day when one spouse passes away. And I know we've covered a lot of ground today on a lot of different topics, pretty high level. Obviously, the best way someone can get help from you guys is coming in and sitting down, looking at their individual financial situation and figuring out what kind of planning needs to be in place. But what other legacy planning issues do you often find are going overlooked by married couples?
Biggest thing I see is nobody knows what their beneficiary designation forms actually say. and they don't realize that the government changed the rules. So the thing when you have like a 401k or an IRA, it's like being in partnership with the government. The thing it is, you take on all the risk, you pay all the fees, you do all the work, and they get to decide in the middle of the game at any time that they can change the rules and reduce the amount of money that they're going to allow you to keep and that they're going to take, right? You've gone on this journey, you've been out to sea, and now you're coming into the harbor, and there's some punk on the shore with binoculars and it says IRS on his jacket. He's just waiting for you. You're like, yeah, you've been doing all the work and now I'm going to get my piece. And so when the government changed the rules with the Secure Act and they put in that 10-year rule in place, all of a sudden they kind of simultaneously do two things. One, they delayed when RMDs start, required minimum distribution. So it was 70.5, then for like 10 seconds it was 72.
Right.
And then next thing you know, you blink your eyes and no, it's 73 or it's 75. People thought that was a gift from the government, but when it comes to taxes, like there's not really any gifts. The government knows what they're doing. And reports suggest that by 2035, this is from the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, by 2035, the federal debt will be above $53 trillion. And already today, every day, the government spends like $2.5 billion in interest alone. It's insane. They'll spend $1 trillion this year. So tax rates are going to go up. So if you misapply or you're not really strategic about who you put your beneficiary, it could really cost you. But here's what I'd leave you with. I get that some of our viewers out there are like, yeah, Tim, this sounds great. And these aren't conversations I'm currently having with my advisor, but I really like my advisor because change is hard.
Yep.
But you're not alone. Do you guys know what the average railroad gauge is or the standard gauge for a railroad in the United States? It's 4 feet, 8.5 inches. You know why? Because British expats built the railroad system initially, but some of the railroads designed the railroad system. They learned from the people who designed the tramways in Britain, who used 4 feet, 8.5 inches, who used the same jigs as when they had covered wagons that used 4 feet, 8.5 inches, which were designed to fit the ruts from the ancient roads from the Romans and the Roman Empire who came over for their chariots, which designed their chariots based off the width they'd need for 2 horses. I get that change is hard. You're not alone. But if these are conversations you're currently having, you owe it to yourself to get a second opinion because you can't get a second opinion from the person that gave you the first one. We invite you to get that complimentary written financial review today.
Wonderful. Tim, Jeremy, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, that number to call to schedule yours is 866-256-7778. Or again, you're welcome to click that QR code. That will get you connected as well. Thanks so much for joining us. We look forward to being back with you next time here on the Retirement Compass.